So for a long time, I planted trees, and that's a very nomadic lifestyle. I lived out of a truck with a little, camper in the back kind of idea.
That was Ben Smith from our interview a couple weeks ago. We'll have part two coming up on this episode shortly. Find the full interview on our Parked Pro Patreon. We have a few things to discuss before we get into that interview. You're listening to the Northern Flights podcast. Watch us on YouTube. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by DiscGolfPark Canada. They are a supplier of course materials, and they have a great team of designers. If you're in Western Canada, you can get in touch with Matt Reardon, Mark Oxer, or Clayton Beddington for course design near you. If you're in Ontario, Quebec, or the East, you can get in touch with Chainlink Disc Golf, which is Kara and Jeff, or Ben Smith, who is about to be interviewed. We just played on Disc Golf Park baskets at a C tier we ran this weekend. The baskets looked great, they caught great, and I can't say enough good things about them.
Well, and I think the nice thing, especially at Raven's Nest, is it's a newer course, and so there's not a lot of people that are familiar with where the next tee box and stuff is. So that's when you look at the bottom of the tray and you have that arrow. It points you exactly which way you need to go to get to the next tee box. They're great for navigation, and that blue really pops. And I must say, it's a little bit on brand with Park Pro as well. Cool. All right. Well, let's get into it. Today's beer, we have the Juicy AF. I think we all know what the AF stands for. It's an India Pale Ale, and it's from Vancouver Brewery.
Yeah, Boombox Brewery, and I think they use the facilities at Parallel 49.
So a lot of people who are beer drinkers in BC probably know Parallel 49. So cheers. It's definitely Juicy AF.
Yeah, aptly named beer for sure.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a bitter finish, IPA.
Yeah.
7.5% alcohol, but nice, fruity,
Oh,
juicy forward flavor.
if we get to the bottom of these by the end of the episode, I wonder how this podcast is going to sound.
Oh, I'll be underneath the table, so it won't sound great.
All right. So before we get into the business of the podcast, we have a very important thing to address. I had this comment. It came in from Bobby Mac 83. This was a comment on our logo, and he said it looks like a toilet.
Yeah, the basket. When you read the comment and then look at the basket in the logo, you kind of can't unsee it, unfortunately.
I cannot unsee it. All I can say is I guess I just kind of wanted to create a logo that represented my putting game. And that's why I went with the toilet basis there. So, yeah.
That's actually funny. I had an Instagram post after Alberta Open in like 2018 where I was doing a deep straddle putt and my putter was touching my butt. And I was like, this is proof that my putting was poop this weekend.
There you go. Cool. Well, let's get into the Jonesboro action. It was pretty exciting. We'll talk about FPO first. Kristen Tatar rebounded huge rebound from last week. There's obviously a lot of drama that went on, but it was strong outing for her from start to finish. Great win for her. Great rebound.
Yeah, absolutely. The rebound thing is what I like. When there's a big event that can maybe hurt your mental game.
Yeah.
Coming back from that is tough, and to see her rebound and take the win this weekend was really cool.
Yeah, I don't think there's any FPO Canadians in the FPO field. Not in this one anyways. I believe coming up though, we have some tournaments where we might see some Canadians come into it. I just heard rumblings of a few ladies that might be going down to some of these tournaments. So I guess we'll kind of stay tuned for that. On the MPO side though, what an exciting finish. It came down to the wire between Calvin and Paul, and it looked like, I don't know, it was interesting to watch for the last few holes because even Chase Card and the card before that, when Thomas Gilbert looked like he was in the running for a little bit. He had a really hot last round, but it came down to Calvin Heimberg and Paul Macbeth, and it was exciting to say the least.
Yeah, it was. And actually, you can't say that without saying anything about Kevin Jones because he was right in it right up until the end there. To have a three-way tie coming down the stretch like that is about as exciting as it gets. But the hot topic right now is the tee pad on the playoff hole, right?
Yeah.
And earlier, Paul had an incident with trash can as well. So the course was really biting at him. But for those that haven't seen it, you can check out Paul's Instagram or recording the live feed. When he goes to throw his tee shot on that playoff hole, you see that something happens with the front of the tee pad. I think Paul's Instagram post says that it rips. I'm not sure if it ripped through like a fastener on the side, because I didn't see a tear in the fiber itself. But then the entire tee pad crumples at the front. It messes with his footing. He saws off his drive. And I think, as he phrased it on Instagram, is Calvin could smell the blood in the water, and he put his drive under the basket for a tap in too.
Really capitalized on that.
Super clutch.
They probably should have got DiscGolfPark to take a look at that tee pad.
DiscGolfPark tee pads, they're great. Take a look.
So that was exciting. As far as the Canadians that went down to this tournament, we talked about a little bit about Thomas. He had a really nice looking last round. He was in the running with Gannon Burr at one point, but he kind of fell off on hole 11 and on hole 17 with a couple of bogeys. But he was a nice strong outing. I'm not sure where
10th, I believe, right?
Yeah, he finished tied for 10th. He had an 8 on that final round, so that's huge. And he rebounded a little bit from a little bit of a slower second round. Our boy Max Rigetnig, he did pretty good as well. He looked like he kind of kept consistent throughout the weekend. So
yeah, Max has been slowly moving up a few spots every tournament. Nice to kind of see him, 60th and 50th and 46th this weekend. Final round, only one down, which dropped him a few spots. But, I think he's been playing above his rating almost every round for the last 3 tournaments. So I think by the end of the year, he will be fully in the swing of things.
Yeah, and it's nice to see him get into that top 50 as well. So the other guy I want to bring up here is, do we consider Simon Lizotte kind of Canadian? Because he's got a Canadian passport, I believe. He spent some time in Ottawa. He's
well, yeah, his uncle's in Quebec and I think it's no longer, but had a disc golf store there. Promoted the game for a long time in Quebec. Simon and his family lived in Vancouver for quite some time. If you listen to Simon's stuff, he was playing Queenie Park as a 13-year-old and stuff like that, which is cool. But the is he Canadian part, like he lives in the States and obviously identifies himself as German.
Right.
The big thing I saw is that at Canadian Nationals, which you'll hear a bunch about again in a minute, there's a specialty award for the top finishing Canadian. And I'm pretty sure Simon specifically requested to be in the running for that award. So if that's anything to go by, I think we can call him a Canuck.
Yeah, at least somewhat. At least enough that I think we should include him in this little Canadians watch segment.
Or I think we're just really proud of him for how well he played this weekend too.
Because I don't know if you didn't pay attention to the tournament, he shot an amazing second round. I think he was 13 down in the second round, and then this last round he was shooting really well as well, and he was right in the mix up until the last 3 holes where he had a couple of pars and a bogey, but he really showed a lot of heart. It's nice to see Simon doing well again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's a guy that when I started playing was one of the most exciting players, and obviously with injuries and a shift in interest, I know he's had some years where he'd rather be entertaining than competing. Yeah. To see him competing at a high level again is really exciting. And I'm super excited to see what happens next for him. Because when, you see Simon line up on a eagleable par 4, he's not playing safe for birdie. And that really gets me going. So.
Yeah. And of course, a good friend of the show, good friend of ours, Casey Hannemeyer, he's headed down to Emporia. So he's there now. He's already getting some practice rounds in. And so we're looking forward to seeing him and Thomas, Max, and Simon all in Kansas.
Yeah, so. DDO. I think his socials showed up last night that he'd finally made it down to Kansas. It was raining cats and dogs with 100-mile-an-hour winds or something crazy. So the Tornado Alley weather is living up to its name. But hopefully when the tournament rolls around, it's all sunshine and they have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's all exciting. I think it's probably a good time to get into the interview now. So without further ado, this is Ben Smith, part 2. This interview is brought to you by BR Disc Golf. BR Disc Golf is a local disc golf supplier to Central Alberta and a new sponsor of the Northern Flights podcast. They have a retail store located in Camrose, Alberta. They offer a wide selection of discs, bags, targets, and other accessories for every skill level. One of the benefits to being a smaller operation is that it's not uncommon to find special releases available long after others sell out. This family-owned and operated company also works with local groups and municipalities to design and bring courses to local communities. They have several courses coming soon to Central and Northeast Alberta. They support leagues in Edmonton, Camrose, and Cold Lake in partnership with local groups and clubs, and they're committed to supplying the local scene with everything that they need in order to grow the sport. Keep an eye out for a couple of tournaments supported by BR Disc Golf, including She's Up First, a women's only tournament on May 14th in Edmonton. Also, mark off May 1st on your calendar to sign up for the Wild Man Spread the Sport tournament located just north of Edmonton, which is happening on July 17th. Both of these tournaments can be found on Disc Golf Scene. We'd also like to shout out a couple of their sponsored players who are doing so much for the sport in their local communities. Terry Hong, who is based out of Edmonton, Alberta, and Brendan Kudrowich out of Camrose. Find BR Disc Golf on Instagram and Facebook to stay up to date on everything disc golf in Central Alberta. And now, part 2 of our interview with Ben Smith. Yeah, so if you want to just give a little bit of rundown of what you guys, what services you offer and what you guys are doing for the sport, and can someone in BC or Alberta or Saskatchewan hire you guys to build courses? Or
Yeah, anyone, anywhere can hire me. We've been in some contract negotiations with a couple folks in Norway and Ireland, and I would see that as happening in my future. I do consultations all the time with people all across North America, sometimes for free, sometimes for money. Generally speaking, I've been in the landscape world. Well, I mean, my grandfather made me landscape with him when I was like 13 to 15. So I've been in the landscape world almost 30 years. I own two companies, Flickline, which is specifically just for disc golf and kind of the tour events. I run an 8-stop maritime or Atlantic tour here, 2 in each of the Atlantic Canadian provinces. So that's New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland. And I try to run these as kind of premier events. We have a guaranteed payout that exceeds all kind of minimum standards. And we do the same thing with Players Pack. And it allows me to kind of negotiate on a bigger behalf so that I can get in higher quality companies who want to be a part of it. Because I don't want to see things just recycled. We recycle a lot of disc golf money. You know, how many times have you bought, you know, sponsorships or promoted stuff for other people in the disc golf world? Like, that's all great. We're loving, wonderful, kind people, but we need some outside money to kind of come in. And I think we undervalue what we have to offer to a whole clientele. I think there's a lot of people. I mean, you know, Jesse, you've been to nationals. I'm sure you kind of hopefully put like the hand pie company with disc golf because they've like integrated themselves so deeply that, you know, yeah, you come to PEI, you get hand pies, and you know, and it's like, and I think that we can offer that a lot. So my two companies are Flickline Disc Golf and Greensmith Contracting. So Greensmith has been in the landscape company, the landscape domain for almost 15 years. We are focused on natural building and natural building techniques. I used to specialize in stonework and project management. So it was pretty easy to transition that over to some of my bigger builds. And Flickline, we run about 12 to 15 events a year. Pre-pandemic, I was teaching disc golf in schools somewhere around 60 to 100 days a year. And then I try to build ideally 6 courses. Last year I built 10 courses in the pandemic, and I'm not gonna lie, that was too many. It was difficult. And so yeah, that's it. I'm employed full-time in disc golf. I don't carry an outside job anymore, and so it's kind of like I'm all in. And I as I said, some European designers kind of took me aside about 5 or 6 years ago and showed me a better way to not waste anything. And then in the last 2 years, I've been working with some forestry co-ops and real true and deep what foresters, not people who come in and just harvest as much wood as they can, who look at the land from a vantage point of the healthiest forest is going to produce the best disc golf course. So let's design the forest first. and then the disc golf course can be secondary. And that was a profound thing for me to flip my switch on. It might sound pretty simple here now, but it really it shook me when they kind of showed me these processes and we went through a lot of the stuff deeply. And so my last 4 or 5 courses, that's been the driving principle, and that will continue to be the driving principle forever. And so I have done big scale project management. uh, I feel very comfortable in a machine or directing machine. I feel very comfortable, from blueprints, raw land, right all the way through. As I've kind of joked, my specialty is from pitch to putt. So, we can pitch the course all the way to the very first putt on it, and all the things that go along through it. So in that same vein as before, I only want to see quality things go in. And I see a lot of new designers out there who make some pretty basic mistakes. I did too. The only benefit that I have, maybe over some other people, is over 20 years, I've probably made almost every mistake once, and theoretically, I've learned from it. So, at the very least, I can do a consultation with you and talk you out of probably 10 bad ideas, and I can still find other bad ideas that I'll pursue later. But for now, I feel fairly confident that I'm moving disc golf closer to the direction that I kind of envisioned it to go.
Awesome. I actually wanted to catch you on what you're talking about with the tour. You said you have 8 events this year. Do you TD all of the events in the tour yourself?
I do. Yep. Yeah. So I TD the 8 events. It's your best 5. Last year, the top AM winner, we had to shorten it through COVID. Last year was the worst. Let's just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
It was the worst in every facet.
Yeah.
My job was twice, if not 10 times harder than it was to do the same job the year before. And mentally, it was exhausting. I'm not going to lie. I struggled with it deeply. And it was a weird thing because you feel a ton of gratitude to be home with your kids and work on your property, and a ton of gratitude to be able to run disc golf events and still do it. But man, anyways, so last year, the winner of the AM1 overall tour was supposed to be given 9 baskets that they could donate to their local municipality, or 6 baskets that they could, or 3 baskets they could keep on their own. Because COVID shortened it, we switched that to 6 baskets. We didn't get a full tour in. So this year, I anticipate the same thing, that the top AM in the tour with tour points will win 9 baskets for their local municipality. And then all the other divisions win something, specific, like the MA40 winner, it's a grip bag, the FA1 winner, it's a permanent basket for a yard, all sorts of things like that. So it's kind of like a fun way for us to kind of have a tour and to, I care, you guys care. I mean, I try not to look at my PDGA rating or worry too much about that. But at the same time, if I were playing nationals, that would be like my focal point to practice for the whole year. Like, all right, man, I got to putt on the 18th hole at nationals. Like, I want to make this, right? So it gives you something to focus on. And for us, Invermere might feel the same way, or some of those like weird little corners. It feels like no one ever builds things for us, like for the, not disfranchised, but like the corners. We don't have a professional sports team in Atlantic Canada. You can't just go to a Stampeders game or a Flames game, or you can't just like slip down and watch the Canucks. Like, you want to see Major League Baseball, you got to travel 14 hours. You want to see professional basketball, it's 15 hours, things like that. So in a subtle way, to just have 8 high quality events where, I guarantee we're going to see our first 1,000 rated player, and it's going to happen in a bunch, come out of the Maritimes in the next 2 to 3 years. And there's a direct line between having a conduit to play PDGA and high quality events. And I've always said, for my players here, I want you to play a flick line event and then go to Tiny, or go to Toonie, or go to Maple Hill or something, and feel completely confident that you know how to play by the rules, what etiquette is, what a little bit of pressure is. We're not just some jabronis like coming off the street and carrying our discs in a plastic bag and yelling at people while they're putting, right? Like, it's small stakes bingo. Yeah, I get it. But at the same time, it's still, it has some meaning to it. And we've produced a lot of very confident players who go around and play and I feel like really embody the game.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, because that was kind of my situation when I first started playing tournaments. Well, I started playing in 2006. on flag trees, goofing around with friends that had played real disc golf courses before, like the most Canadian disc golf experience you can have. But then I came back, got a membership in 2017, started playing. And my third event was Euro Tour in Scotland. And thankfully, my first two events,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I was blessed with having really good TDs with really good players meetings that were very kind and capable of walking you through some of the nuance of playing tournament disc golf. And I jumped in there, felt super comfortable. I ended up winning the tournament. But I know there was other people with me.
Cool.
Yeah, I know. But it was like the second course in Scotland. And some of the Scottish guys that would, just goofed around in the bushes a little bit, maybe didn't know where to put their feet, whichever, definitely looked a little bit lost. And after that event, they didn't, thankfully, because that TD was also really good. Yeah, I definitely understand the value of establishing something important, where people show up and you make sure that things are by the book, and then, ship them off to Toonie, ship them off to Maple Hill. And, I played Flickline.
Yeah, like we it's really funny because at each nationals we've also had to enforce a rule, and it's so funny because you hate doing it, right? Like somebody doesn't play out a hole correctly, and then like three people in their card call you and complain, and you like have to follow through on the violation, or some other more benign but equally as important stuff happens. And I hate doing it. And I think that sometimes subtly, my best buddy there, Duncan, also once stroked me 2 strokes at lunch because I didn't. Back in the day, you had to sign your scorecard, right? And I didn't sign my card. But the joke was, I offered to go get him lunch if he turned in our card, and then he was the guy that stroked me. But hey, I took it like a champ. That was the rule. I'm not above the rules. No exceptions should be made. It was written out. I did have a problem back then with like certain particular things, but you have to do it. And so we've at both nationals we've enforced a pretty heady rule to in some cases disqualify people, and it sucks, but at some juncture we have rules and we have to follow them. And if you want to have a discussion as to why these rules and yada yada yada, I'm all for it, and I'll even write a letter on your behalf if we can both agree that something is asinine or stupid. But in lieu of that, like like you said, so it's tell a funny little story about this. But in 2015, I went to Holland with one of my friends, and it just turned out that there was a Dutch disc golf event. So we went and played it. And I always laugh because the TD said, "I've decided that we'll do the players meeting in the most common language for the dumbest people here." And then they looked right at me and said, "So we're doing it in English." And I was like, "Oh God." But there's all these people, they spoke, like on average 2.5 languages. And anyways, at the Dutch national event, I was able to talk to people from like 15 different countries. And they gave us a lot of insight of what worked in different countries and what didn't. And it's the same thing across Canada. I felt really fortunate that the Maritimes were one of the later areas to institute disc golf, but we learned a lot of lessons from the 40 years of growth behind us. And it's really important that if you're in an area that is new-ish to disc golf, try to hear as many voices as you can, because a lot of people have made mistakes or had reasons why their club didn't accelerate or did accelerate. And the more things you can learn like that, the better it is for your own growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to touch on you having to enforce rules with disqualifications and stuff. And it is tough and it does suck. And I've been stroked for not totaling my scores or whichever. But for some of the bigger infractions and reasons to disqualify people, I think you do have to follow through with enforcing those rules. It's the only way to move the sport forward in a professional manner that we were talking about. You wouldn't have guys drinking on the bench in an NHL game. So it doesn't make sense why at a PDJ event you'd have something like that happening. And yeah, maybe it offends the old guard a little bit because disc golf does come from a more relaxed kind of place. But I think it's key to the growth to enforce those. Sure.
I'd have no problem if we moved to 18 officials, an official on every hole, but I don't know that changes. I think it just substitutes one issue for another. So I don't even know it's that much better. But you're right. You're 100% correct. And as much as it sucks, you got to bite the bullet to do it and cite the rule, go through, find the violation, cite the violation, explain exactly why and how. And, there might be some hurt feelings day of, but overall, I think people understand. And I just remember that disc golf is for everybody. I know that there's people who think of disc golf and they want to, drink and smoke and be more casual. High five, man. I'm happy that you found your way here and you love it. But, for me, like I'm a when I play disc golf, I'm a straight sober guy. And when I'm PDing an event, I'm even straighter sober,
Yeah.
this is the thing. And I just want to stay on top of it. And I'm totally fine if people want to do their own thing, you know, inside of the rules at the time where it's allowed and allotted, like totally fine. But when it comes to the event, like we got a rule book, you got to read it, you got to understand how to use it. And it's not my problem if you haven't and people have. And so, some people also get mad when they get reported or violations happen, but it's like, hey man, we're all, we got to be in control of our body, right? Like you can't, I don't know, it's not
Yeah.
willy-nilly.
So I mean, it's no secret that there's been a huge boost to disc golfers because of the pandemic. So I'm just curious if maybe even in like the tours that you've done in the Maritimes or events that you've run, are you finding that you have to enforce the rules more because there is this influx of new players that might not necessarily know all the rules? Because I've been to a couple tournaments where, I mean, I'm a pretty casual disc golfer, and these are like C tier events or even unrated events, and um, people like they'll maybe not have they'll be foot faulting, and I'll just be like, you know what, it's super casual. I'm on the bottom card of MA2, and I'll kind of let it slide. But are you finding that you have to sort of enforce those rules with those new players?
That's a pretty good question. I don't know if that I'd translate it. There's like these weird bubbles. The people at the top are very confident in their abilities at the top, and they're very confident in their skill sets and that they have a mastery of the rules. The people at the very bottom don't care, so it's kind of this weird people in the middle who maybe think they're a little bit better than what they are, or maybe are a little frustrated that they're not living up to their own expectations, or maybe presume that they understand the rules a little bit better. I don't want to be like kind of throwing shade at anybody particular, but for the most part, well, here's what I find. A digital caddy book sent out about 3 days
Mhm.
before and a really clear and precise players meeting alleviate 99.9% of the issues. So someone's like, well, that's not right, and it's like, well, yeah, it is. Well, let's look, and let's look. You go
Yeah.
back through, you look at the caddy book, it says right here, oh, yes, but he said at the players meeting that that's a moot point because that creek is flooded. Okay, good. And then, but it's when things are left to ambiguity and there are a certain subset of people that may just, I don't know, bully is probably a wrong phrase, but I can't think anything better right now. They kind of bully their way through some of the stuff. So maybe there's even a leeriness of like a newish player to like, oh, I don't know. I feel like I should call him, but he's been playing 5 years, maybe not. So the more clarity that you can offer your players and the tournament base at large, the less of that we have to deal with. And I found that most people who are new to the game are pretty adept to ask questions and do stuff. What things that I actually found in the pandemic is that people, I took for granted a lot of the baseline stuff that people would know, like there's the tent, check in. Like people don't know that,
Mhm.
we have to do a better job of saying like tournament headquarters or laying that out even in the thing, or people don't know the general, like how long should I be there in advance, or, just so the more information you can give people, the better, and it allows them to make more informed decisions. And, so it's not about rule enforcement with them as much as stay on top of it and dictate what's going to happen, and then I find most everyone will go in pretty good. When things are ambiguous, yeah, you know I've
Mhm.
seen some shit shows, let's say that.
Yeah.
And and it's always translates back to, well, one person thinks one thing and another person thinks another, we can't get clarity, and so who wins? Usually the loudest person.
Have you played much out west? Have you played the courses out here? And if so, do you have any plans to come out this way?
Yeah, I but prior to 2010, I'd played over half the courses in Canada. So for a long time, I planted trees, and that's a very nomadic lifestyle. lived out of a truck with a little, camper in the back kind of idea. And so, I mean, I've played courses. I've played over 200 courses and over 100 in Canada. So gives you some context of what and where. I do have a high interest in coming back. The pandemic kind of freaked me out, although, like I say, COVID's just finishing up through my house now. So I'm triple vaccinated, and I just have a lot more empathy, and maybe I care a lot less now than I did a year ago. So like
Yeah.
the thought of flying somewhere a year ago seemed like that's insane. But now I'm kind of like, all right, back to the real world. So I'm trying to pick my spots. I painted myself into a bit of a corner because I run 8 events. That's 8 weekends. I'm going to go to Worlds this year for the old guys, and I'm going to open up at least 2 courses. Plus, my wife and I do like to hike and do some like cool stuff around here, which we have a bevy of. So now we're down to like 3 free weekends in 2022.
Yeah.
So it's not super easy for me to go away. However, I pick 2 events every year, and I try to knock those off my list. So this year, one of them will be Worlds, and I have kind of some other ideas. But yeah, like we used to go to, I would make sure that we'd go to Quebec, Maine, or Ontario every year. I did, like I said, the BC when it held nationals in 2015. And I think it's really important. Now that COVID is, we're at the endemic stage, I will knock one of those off my list every year. So
Right.
yeah, if people have some like really cool ideas, fire them out there, because I'm always willing to listen. And also I see so many cool pictures of so many really neat stuff happening in Canada. I selfishly want to be a part of it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. You briefly mentioned the Can Disc Golf Association. Do you want to get into that a little bit? What is the Can
Sure.
Disc Golf Association? I don't think a lot of people have really heard it. It's not really publicized all that much. Yeah, what is it, and what can we do to kind of get the word out about it a little more?
Yeah, so good question. So to answer that question, what people should understand in Canada is we have a pathway of sport. It's typically built for the podium sport. So any sport that you would see featured in Olympics has a format that is typically the same, generally the same. So that is, you have an NSO, a national sporting organization, who has PSOs, provincial sporting organizations, who would pay some sort of duties or fees to the national body. And in that, they would receive either some insurance or they would have the ability to train their members, and to have them accelerate down the pathway to become certified teachers, coaches, learn the pathway to competitive sport, and kind of run the whole gamut of everything that happens inside of that. Disc golf currently has no mechanism like that. So for me to run this national championship, people are like, oh man, government must like help you out. You must do so well. It's like, in total, the last national event, we were given $3,000 from the government. It cost, the operating budget that we had pre-pandemic was something like $85,000 that we either have to generate through players' fees, fundraising, sponsorships, all sorts of stuff like that. I won't cite you the number, but the Canada Games event, which granted is bigger, but it's 2,000 athletes, they're getting multi-million-dollar support from the provincial government. Same province that we're running nationals in is running Canada Games this year. It's public documents what they get, infrastructure wise, that they build and stuff like that. So Can Disc is the start of us creating that mechanism to become officially registered as a sport and not a sporting organization in Canada, and to have a pathway. And in fact, we've just tendered out the first RFP to coach coaches. So it's community coaching standard. We've had a successful bid. In fact, it's a really exciting, maybe sharing some breaking news here. We're still working through some logistics, but in principle, the contract has been awarded to a joint venture between Zoe Ann Dyke's company, You Play Disc Golf, and Mark Oxer and his partner out of Alberta, who kind of run high-end, they're very university-based, meticulous in their sport training. So they're creating a bid to start us on a pathway to train community coaches. And, for the 3 of us, it's pretty easy. Like, what's a community coach? Like, we already have a dialogue. But if I want to take this to a PE teacher and be like, hey, you should teach this game, they've never heard of hyzers or, flip up discs or understable or what a putt is, or, so sharing a common dialogue and a common language that we can build on and then train people to become high-end disc golf athletes, that's coming down the pipeline. So the NSO, CanDisc, is just the mechanism by which we will have all that created. And most of your provincial bodies are recognized by CanDisc as the PSO for disc golf. You said there's a little bit of ambiguity in the prairies, and we have a few slow adapters, but that's fine. Like, it'll slowly work its way. So ideally, by this time next year, we're hoping that CanDisc can offer insurance to all your clubs and members all across the country. We're hoping that it can be the body that provides the framework for nationals and be the body that provides the framework for the team event, the Canadian team event. And eventually it will train people to go through the whole pathway to become high-end disc golf competitors. And we see that it took a long time to get to this part. We've had people across the country chime in, and it's nobody's full-time job. No one gets paid for CanDisc. It's all volunteer hours, and there's a lot of people who've carried a lot of weight, and there's also a lot of decisions that require due diligence that's not easy to, like, I don't know how to write an insurance underwriter for how many disc golfers we're going to have in Canada, and nobody does, because you're like, well, what is that? Is it golf? It's like, well, you could call it golf, but it's not. So as you can imagine, it's a uphill battle, but we've been climbing incrementally every month, and we're in a lot better shape than we were, say, in 2018.
It's kind of the right thing to get going now, so that you put the work and time in, and eventually that we have that overarching organization for regulation. But with that said, I'm wondering, how does that interface with PDGA Canada? Like you said, it'll give you the framework for nationals, but you're going to have to present your bid to PDGA Canada. Is CanDisc eventually going to be something that has their own set of guidelines? You have to satisfy both. You work together.
In principle, maybe many of your listeners will know Brian Honegger, and he represents PDGA International, and consequently PDGA Canada. Brian is completely on board. He was one of the early adapters to sign for CanDisc, and he sees the transition from PDGA International to CanDisc. It is just one of those things that Canadians have lived with, that we just kind of adopt American rules and then like Canadianize them. But that doesn't really suit, right? Their insurance is a lot different than ours in terms of liability and, personal liability and all that sort of stuff. So Brian is a huge supporter of us. And I would see there being a transition period where CanDisc probably trumps. We'll always play by the PDGA rules. That's just disc golf rules. But CanDisc will have control over Canadian disc golf content. And so, if that kind of answers your question, he is a supporter. They see us transitioning, and we see us taking over a lot of the role that the PDGA International currently provides. We'll always be an umbrella organization, so to speak, or we'll always work in the mechanism, because we all want to play Worlds, right? We all want to play some of the PDGA stuff. And I don't think that precludes us from it. It just allows us to address Canadian issues more specifically and pertinently, and then, pay our fees in the way that it's proper.
Yeah, so it's a NHL AHL situation, right? You're working with one another, but if you have an AHL problem, you're not phoning Bettman.
For our two American listeners, yes. That's the National Hockey League and American Hockey League. It's a minor league thing. Very cool. Is there anything that people can do at this moment to sort of support that and kind of keep the ball rolling? Is there memberships, or is that something that's coming down the pipeline?
You can contact myself or our president, Craig Sheether. And there are some subcommittees out there. Education is the one that I look after, but membership and things of that nature. And you can also, most of your big events, I would think, in the country have some connection to CanDisc. There'd be somebody kind of in the echelon that would know us. So yes, I never want to stop people from helping. Where it's so new, it's like almost hard for me to express exactly what we need. But I would say become familiar with it, reach out to one of the executive members. You can find us on Facebook or online, candisc.ca. Oh God, I should know that off by heart. But
CanDiscGolf.ca,
yeah,
I think.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, you can make some inquiries there. I'd say get on a subcommittee. Make it known to your membership that this is important. And like I say, I really want to see the team game happen next winter, and I really want to see that kind of take on a more serious role. And at nationals, we'll make some announcements about that stuff too, and we'll kind of just try to keep it in the forefront.
Cool. Very cool. Just do you want to touch on some of the players and stuff that are down in the States, the Canadian players, and how they're doing? And are you a fan? Do you watch them? Do you keep track of all that stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I messaged Thomas Gilbert this morning. I just saying, I'll just love Thomas. I mean, he's just like epitomizes Canada. He's so humble and kind, and it was lovely to see him like come out and embrace like who he is as a person. And it's also lovely to see him crush it, man. Like
Yeah, he's
cashing
killing
is hard now. Like there's not a lot of dead weight on the tour anymore. And everybody in Canada should be really proud. Like Thomas's story is very interesting. His parents kind of had something in their mind of how they wanted to see him pursue education. And Thomas is like, I think I got something special here. And eventually they allowed him to do that. And he's like representing on the world stage. Now, that's not to take away from any other Canadian. I certainly, again, go back to DGPT. Their live content is like amazingly good now. Pay your money, whatever it is, just pay the fee. It's worth it. And so, yeah, I try to watch as many as I can. As you probably imagine, I've become friends with several people on tour. So I have lots of people that I communicate with on a regular basis, and I'm, really rooting for them. And, but yeah, like, of course, you gotta be proud for everyone that's competing down there from Canada. So we have a really, we're probably over indexed for how many people are involved in this game and really good. And look at how many 1,000 rated players we have nationally. Like that's pretty impressive. So it's always nice to see. I follow everyone with that little Canadian flag beside them, and I'm watching if you're on the cut line, if you made it, and yeah, it's really good. It's a good time to be in disc golf in Canada right now.
I want to add one more to your Canadian tracker. If you look on UDisc, there's a Swedish flag beside his name, but his name is Max Forgetnig. He was born here in Invermere, and he's a raised Canadian. His dad and mom both live on the West Coast still. And he just moved to Sweden to pursue pro sports. He plays pro volleyball in the winter and pro disc golf in the summer. But yeah, he's a born and raised good British Columbian boy, and now he's down there.
Okay.
He's battling in Texas with the wind a little bit, but yeah, he's he signed up for nationals. He played with me and stayed with me in 2019 as well.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
really
that's good.
excited.
I didn't realize the Canadian content.
Yeah.
Simon always tells me too when he comes, he's like, hey, just so we're clear, like if I come in the top, like you've got to give me the top Canadian because we have a special prize, right? Yeah. The Elaine King Memorial, not that she's passed, but the Elaine King Memorial, we honor the top Canadian finisher. Yeah. And Simon was adamant the last time. He's like, I have a Canadian passport. He's like, and so
you just got to tell him that. You got to tell him if the Canadian flag's not beside his name, then I don't know. I don't know if he can.
I don't know. Canadians will go like 7 degrees of separation to lay claim over anyone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Hey, he drank a Tim Hortons coffee once. He's Canadian.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have too much more. Yeah, I've taken up a lot of your time. So, do you have anything you want to plug, or is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, people, you want to stay up to date on some of the stuff that we're doing here, and for the national event, check out my website, our website at flickline.ca. We try to write a lot of written content too, not just about nationals, but like in general, the experience. I think storytelling is a very important role that we should play. Disc golf has been a huge benefit for a lot of people with PTSD. We've worked with a lot of veterans in the last few years. And it's just such a subtle game to like go out and you interact with it however you want that, we spent a lot of time talking about the competitive stream and nationals and things like that. But 9 out of 10 disc golfers don't get involved with any of that. And I just want people to remember one of the most beautiful things about this is those morning rounds. I'm telling you, that's just me and my dogs. We're out there very peacefully, and I hope that more people can find it, because I think disc golf is a game for the future. And I would just really like to reiterate that at your own pace, your own leisure, interact with this as you want. I think people like myself, and I probably expect the two of you too, build this game for everybody. And so I just want to see more people of every race, color, creed, shape, size know that this game is for them and interact with it however it pleases them.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
this has been awesome. I'm super excited to chat with you, and hopefully I'll be able to meet you in person. I'm hoping to get out to nationals this year, but we'll see. I don't know if I can make it work. I need to somehow find the finances or make an excuse. I'm expecting a baby, so it'll be
before or after?
Before. Few months, so it'll be like,
damn it.
It'll be a little bit. It'll be I don't know.
Some advice.
But that's the thing is she wants to get out there too. That's like, she wants to get out. Like, it was like, hey, maybe we can make a trip out of this.
I'll tell you a funny story though. The nationals actually came to be. There's a person that never gets thanked that really needs to be thanked, and that's Nate Sexton's wife. We met Nate and Paul at an event in Maine in like 2016, maybe 2017. And I'm never really that starstruck. I mean, it was, we had this funny moment where Paul threw his first disc, and then I was like, well, I'm quitting disc golf. He's just, they're so much better than the rest of us. Anyhow, we ended up just kind of wandering around the property and chatting, and we were chatting with this lovely young lady, and it turned out to be Nate's wife. And we got asking her some questions about, and she just said, look, treat Nate like a good human being, and he'd probably come to your event. So we actually, we put up the pros in oceanside cottages, but I always go to their significant other and say, what can we do for you while you're here? Because it's really important to me that my wife has a nice time when we go away. And I know that I'm going to go disc golfing all day. And so it's, anyways, so it's a very vacation friendly, and selfishly, you really can, your wife would have a lovely time, and your son or daughter, even in their infancy stage, will be very comfortable, and it's a very hospitable place. So if you can make it work. However, if you can't, then, for the next, I've said until I'm 50 years old, I'm willing to commit to this lifestyle. And so we got a countdown clock of 8 more years. So, hit it in that window and you're going to have a great time.
Yeah. I know. That's what I was. I told Jesse that I was like, oh yeah, maybe my wife and I will come, but we have the baby. We're going to have the baby at that point. And like, we're trying to do good at the tournament. So,
well, it's funny.
Baby might not be the best.
We got a 3-room Airbnb. One's my girlfriend and I. One's Casey Hannemeyer and his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then a 4-bunk room that's Max Regetnig and Linus Carlson. And then we'll just put Screaming Baby in with the touring Swedes. And
there you go.
Canada wins again, right?
Well, no kidding. I will make mention. So, that's all like coming together too, because I saw those names and I was like, oh, I'm super excited. And I just didn't realize they had such deep connections to you guys out there. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. Max is the guy that showed me disc golf. He ended up moving
kidding.
The 4th grade. He moved to New Jersey beside Warwick Park. I don't know if you're familiar with Warwick, but
I played it.
Yeah. Actually. That's Steve Brinster's home course. So he got taught how to play disc golf by Steve Brinster until 2006 and then moved home. And the closest course for us was like 150 kilometers away. So we walked out in the bush with some flagging tape, and suddenly I played disc golf for 5 years without seeing a basket because Max had to keep going. And then, when he left, he went to Sweden. He started playing pro immediately, and now he's doing what he's doing. Pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's a small world when you start thinking disc golf, man. It's really small.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks,
awesome.
boys.
Thank you.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Definitely.
It was good.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, everyone. That was part 2 of our interview with Ben Smith. It was nice to get to know Ben Smith a little bit in our brief chat that we had with him. I call it brief, but it ended up being about an hour and a half total. So, and obviously he's a really good guy, really, really good at talking, really good storyteller. We talked about this a little bit, is that we didn't really have to ask him too many questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben is the podcaster's delight. You ask him a question, you get a well thought out answer. There is no yes, no dead space. He makes sure that he's been as thorough as possible, and he gives you all the information you want. You don't have to pry. He's a dream guest.
Yeah, he answers questions that you didn't know you had, which is great.
Yeah, he gave me the question and then answered it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really great to have Ben Smith on. If you want to hear more about Ben Smith, like we mentioned in the first episode, check out
the Flickline tour, for one.
Yeah, right.
That's his
Flickline.
main outlet on Facebook and stuff. But he's also on Instagram at Laughing Benjamin.
Yeah, I don't think he posts too much, but definitely check him out. Flickline, check out the Can Disc Golf. And also, if you want to see Ben and get to know a little bit more about what happened at the last Canadian Nationals, not the satellite event, but the actual event, check out Throw Canada, which was put on by Jonesboro Pro and Central Coast Disc Golf.
Yeah, it's a great documentary too. You'll get a lot of insight into the Maritimes and the scene in Eastern Canada, and it's really well made too. The beauty of Prince Edward Island is all through that documentary, so you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the view and nothing else.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting about that documentary specifically is that it was done pretty much right before disc golf blew up. It was kind of right before the pandemic, so like we talked about in last week's interview, is Nationals had a really rough go. Canadian Nationals had a really rough go. It was the hurricanes, and then it was COVID 2 years in a row. So
yeah, I'm not sure we spoke about it, but I remember I had left my sunglasses at the Huckett course, and my partner Caitlin and I drove up because they have like a little players clubhouse, which is kind of just a big shed. And I wanted to see if my sunglasses got turned in. It took us like 15, 20 minutes to walk up the driveway. You had to park on the highway and crawl over and under trees that were, 2-foot radius mature trees that had been blown over by the hurricane. And the property was just absolutely decimated. The fact that they were able to finish that event afterwards, it blows my mind.
Well, it's just a testament to Ben's ability to run a tournament, right?
Oh, Ben and the volunteers, right?
Oh, 100%.
I think remembering on the day, because they released an email late at night during the hurricane to see if we were going to play. And I'm pretty sure they had like chainsaw crews out at 4 a.m. once the winds were down enough, clearing Hillcrest. It goes to show how much they care, and how much the Maritimes kind of came and rallied to make sure that event went off with as few hitches as possible for having a natural disaster in the middle of it.
Yeah. So I believe the tournament's full now, so definitely get on the waiting list, because you never know. People's plans change all the time. You never know if you're going to get in, so definitely worth it to at least get on that waiting list. So
yeah, no skin off your back. And because it is kind of isolated out there, people's vacation plans change. Sometimes people's financial situation change. I know if you're probably in the top 10 to 15 people of any division on the wait list, there's more than a 50% chance you get in. So get on that wait list if you can.
Yeah. All right, and we'll move on now to our little series that we had. We had a local tournament here at our course, the course that Jesse designed. It was the Rusty Ravens Nest tournament. Rusty Ravens at Ravens Nest.
Rusty Ratings at Ravens Nest?
Rusty Ratings at Ravens Nest.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Third event in the series for our Little Point series. Went pretty well. We didn't have a lot of registration until like 2 or 3 days before, and then I think we doubled. We got close to...
It was great. It was 30. I think we ended up with 36 people.
Yeah, 36.
So which is like not... I mean, it's not a big tournament, but these tournaments weren't meant to be really big. They were meant to be small, C tiers, just, knock the rust off your ratings and knock the rust off your game. So it was kind of... it was great to see everyone rally together and play that course. We also did a lot of work to the course beforehand. We worked on a few holes, which is always a great thing. And it's so rewarding to hear people's positive feedback about the course afterwards, even though we don't have tee pads in yet. So
yeah, definitely. That is a very unique property. And tee pads are one thing we need, but any course can have tee pads. Not any course can have that piece of land. And I think people really enjoy what we've got going on out there.
Definitely. And big shout out to Matt Reardon for taking down the MPO division win.
Yeah, our DiscGolfPark sales rep for our region, who's sponsoring this podcast, just happened to win. So double shout out to Maddie. Really consistent golf from him, right? I think he
Super
shot
consistent.
like 980 back to back or
Yeah.
something like that, or 977.
Something like that. It was really, really cool to see. Really, really nice. And it's if you haven't had a chance to meet Matt, he's a really relaxed guy. He's a really good guy to talk to. So, and yeah, I don't know, nothing but good things to say about him.
Yeah, if you're ever passing through the Rocky Mountains, I wouldn't schedule his day for him. But if you ever wanted someone to have a really great round around the Canmore Nordic Center with, Matt is the man to do it with.
Yeah, for sure. The next tournament that we have in the Rusty Ratings, it's the last tournament, the fourth tournament, is up in Golden. It'll be the first event in Golden. So if you're in the area, that's definitely one to sign up for. We already have about 35 people signed up. So definitely probably going to be the biggest tournament. And I think it might be because there's a massive ace pot. We haven't had an ace yet in the series. So the ace pot just keeps growing and growing.
Yeah. To give some clarity on that, we've been rolling over the ace pot for the entire series. So we didn't hit an ace in tournament 1, 2, or 3, which means I think we're over $500 for a tournament series that gets about 30 to 35 people.
I think we're over 500 at Raven's Nest. I think we're over 600 now. And Golden,
yeah,
it's not a challenging course. There's a lot of trees, but it is a very aceable course.
Yeah, I think, and I won't just speak for like the big arm guys, but for your average MA2 plus kind of golfer, there's probably 15 potential aces out there.
I'd say so, something like that. There's a lot of reachable holes for anyone. I don't think I've had an ace there, but I've come close on numerous occasions. And as you can tell by my toilet logo, I'm not that good. So for me to have an ace run is pretty good. So definitely worth signing up for. Check it out. It's on Disc Golf Scene. We'd love to see your support. Would love to see you come out, even if it's just for this last one. I think the leader currently for the series in the MPO is actually Matt Reardon, and I believe Jesse's second.
I am second, and I know some guys won't be climbing that leaderboard because they couldn't make the full series, but Matt is signed up for the final tournament. So it'll be a showdown between him and I for the series, and anything can happen on that course. Like Andre said, if you have a bad putting day on a course that short,
yeah,
that could cost you the tournament because someone could walk off pretty comfortably with a high double digit, 13, 14, 15
definitely
down, right? So one bad putting day and say goodbye to your series championship, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to take part in that. Definitely worth checking out. Yeah, I think we'll move on to the Rumble registration. We don't have any firm dates or anything like that. The Rumble at the Raven's Nest. It's what we were talking about before. We're talking about the Golden Tournament. That's the course that we're talking about. We're hoping that by the tournament start, we hope that tee pads will be in.
Yeah, the owners of the course have been after me for the last few weeks, getting quotes together for tee box material. They're really keen to get it done. The tee boxes will be done before the big tournament. That there's no question about that.
Yeah, and so if you're wondering what we're talking about, that's the Rumble at Raven's Nest. Last year it happened in October.
Yep, mid-October.
It was a huge success. The weather was amazing. This year we're hosting it in August.
Last weekend in August.
Definitely one to check out. It's a B tier. There's going to be a bunch of added cash.
Well, there's going to be a bunch of added everything. I've been scheming every night about this stuff. So it's looking like we're having food trucks. I've got a massage therapist lined up. We're working on a beer garden. I'm working on some extra added cash to really blow it out of the water. And for those that don't know, this campground also has a music festival on the property, not mixed in with the disc golf course, but beside it. And I've been scratching my head about trying to get a couple bands for like a Saturday night players party right there on the property because they've also got the camping and the cabins.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a great weekend just to take part in, just because not just for the disc golf, but you're at this beautiful spot. It's amazing camping. They have cabins, all this other stuff. The disc golf is just almost a bonus. So
yeah, actually, it was kind of funny in my groups at the C tier last weekend. A couple guys in my group would stop like every second or third hole and just go, dang, I love nature. And they're looking at the sky. They're looking at the wetlands. They're looking at the mountains. If you haven't been there, that piece of property is just stunning. The views are fantastic. And if you can make it out last weekend in August, I highly suggest you do.
Yeah. All right. I believe our next tournament, I believe you're signed up. I'm signed up currently, is the spring runoff. It's in early May. That's taking place in Lethbridge. How are you feeling about that tournament?
Terrified. Because I've got some information that changed how I feel about this whole tournament. In the past, it was played at one course, Nick Sheeran Park, which I haven't played before, but I've heard it's quite open. So, that's good for me on short notice, having not played it. No weird lines to learn or anything like that.
Yeah.
But then I just found out on the weekend that this one will be played on 3 different courses. And
So?
I think I can only get like half the day Friday off. So I'm going to have to learn 3 courses inside of like 4 hours of daylight.
Cool.
Not cool. But, a weekend playing disc golf is always a good time, no matter if you're super prepared or not. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go have fun, keep my expectations at a, appropriate level for not knowing the courses, and, just try my best and see where we end up.
Yeah. So that's 2 weeks away.
What is it, the 8th of May, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Strategically plan that with the Rusty Ratings series to work into that so people can get their practice in before the real tournaments start popping up.
Well, I mean, if it's going on a rating, they're all real. But yeah, that tournament is pretty well established. I'm not sure how many years they've been running it, but it's been run every year that I've been playing tournaments anyway.
And I've never played any of the courses, and I was really looking forward to this, but I think I might be dropping out.
No. Why?
Yeah, because I think I'm going to do some coverage.
Oh, you're going to film it?
I believe I'm going to film it.
Oh, now I have to play really good. I got to get on lead card and get my smiling face on camera.
Yeah, I've been chatting with Rebecca, and she's the tournament director there. And she reached out to me last year and she asked me if I wanted to photograph it. And I said, I think I was busy that weekend. So I was unable to do that. But this year, yeah, that's something I thought of in the last couple of weeks. And I thought it'd be a decent little practice run for the A tier and at the end of May. So,
well, you had me nervous because we've been talking about rooming together and traveling together.
I know.
But
yeah, now you're just going to be helping me move my camera equipment.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's exciting. And they'd be a good group to work with.
That's what I figured.
Having not been to the tournament, but I know Rebecca and I know Noah and I know their club, the Bridge City Gunners, are very involved people. I'm sure if you need stuff moved, you won't have to rely on me. Those guys will look after you. Yeah.
I'm not sure when that coverage will come out. It'll probably be later. I'm thinking my thought on this was that, it was revealed at the end of the interview. I'm expecting a baby in June. So I'm going to be pretty busy, but I'm going to have a lot of time at home. And I feel like I'm going to have a lot of time twiddling my thumbs. So I thought to myself, what can I do to get myself something to do? And so I thought, well, why don't I just do some more coverage, and then I have that time that I'm taking care of baby and whatnot, just strap it into the carrier in front of me and just do some video editing.
Production assistant.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that must be helpful to do this beforehand, right? Because I'm assuming, and I think it's more than an assumption, that for anyone that's doing production for these things, you have a template set for the whole distances and all of the graphics. This will help you work out those kinks so that the A-tier coverage comes out smoothly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Very exciting. Cool. All right. And I think that's it for the podcast. But I just want to remind you guys to not forget to check out our Patreon. I'm going to re-say that. All right, guys. I think that's it for the podcast. Don't forget to check out our Patreon. We have 2, and you heard that. 2 Patreons.
2. They're called patrons, right?
Well, I call them Patreons because they're on Patreon.
I'm pretty sure they're patrons, right? Because they'd be a patron of your arts.
That's true. All right. We have 2 patrons on Patreon.
Let's split hairs over something meaningless. Wonderful.
Yeah. That's what this podcast is all about.
Yeah, totally.
All right. The 7%'s hitting us a little bit now.
Yeah. Definitely starting to feel it, but it was juicy AF.
It was super juicy.
It was actually, a pretty darn good beer, all things considered.
All right. So don't forget to check out our Patreon. We have 2 patrons. huge thanks to Tyler B and Greg Hearn. You guys are our first patrons. I'm sure there's going to be more to follow. As a reward for being our first 2 patrons, we're going to give you guys, one of you guys, a shirt. And we're going to do that by flipping this mini.
Ooh,
The PDGA mini, the octopus. So, who's the octopus?
It would appear that Tyler B should be heads because I've decided that Tyler B should be heads.
All right, and Greg, your tails. So, here we go.
Tails.
It's tails. Greg, you got yourself a Park Pro shirt. I'll reach out to you. You can tell me your size, what color you want. Give you the options, and you can tell me what you'd like.
Yeah,
So,
congrats, Greg, because the shirts look awesome. Andre designed them, but they're also like this very soft cotton. I wear mine
Super
all
soft.
the time. They're great shirts. You're really going to enjoy this.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's it.
Yeah. Thanks to everybody for listening. I'm Jesse Tomalty, and this has been the Northern Flights podcast.
Thank you very much. Andre, out.